right, there we go. Awesome. Yeah, so Chubby, I just wanted to thank you again for joining us here. Excited to hear what you had to say. Little intro for people that don't know who you are. I don't think that you really need much introduction, but I'm going to do a little bit of one for you anyways here. So Chris Chubby Frederick started ATI. I think that, as far as my eyes, he was one of the forefathers of this, if not the original coaching company for the automotive world. How long ago did you start ATI?
Oh, God, depends who you ask, but for 50 years, I've been in the automotive industry helping shop owners, but probably, 25, 30 in the coaching side.
Yeah, and so 25, 30 years of out there helping shops, helping this industry. I think that, if a lot of people here have been a member of ATI, still member of ATI, I've seen firsthand what their program can do and really the massive changes that they're able to do. Doing incredible things for people, not only changing people's lives, but also as this industry as a whole, really bringing it up. Yeah, and I just want to thank you again for joining us, and I will open the floor to you, and you can share your presentation and get rolling on it.
All right. Thank you very much for inviting me to join you today. And congratulations on surviving the pandemic thus far. So I've never seen a more challenging time than the one that we've been through. And I thought I'd seen it all, actually. And I was hoping I'd retire before I seen this one. But the pandemic was definitely a new one for me. I think we've seen 5 recessions in my career since I started in '71, and most of them have been good for us. So it's really a shame to watch some of them that haven't been so good for us, but like this one. But it's okay, and it's good that we all learn and prepare ourselves and our kids and our managers that are taking our business over on what could happen. So and how to prepare for it, because we definitely weren't too prepared for this, and we learned the hard way. And now we kind of know a lot more about what to do in pandemics. So hopefully that'll help us tremendously. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the economic forecast is for the next 3 years, so that you could develop a business plan to help you stay ahead of the curve. You don't need me to tell you about the economy right now, right? I mean, it sucks, and it's going to continue to suck for a while. So I hope you guys on the West Coast didn't get up at 6 o'clock to watch the fat boy speak about the economy. But more important, let's talk about what's going to happen and how we can take advantage and maximize profits and get prepared for what's going to happen next, because that's really the most important thing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the curve, and the curve is really the business cycle. If you look at business in general, it goes through 4 phases. It always has. There's a recessionary phase like we're in now, then it goes into recovery, then it goes into accelerating growth, and then it goes into slowing growth and back into a recession once in a while. Trying to figure out what's going to happen before it happens can really help you take advantage of lots of things, and not just prepare yourself, but be able to have the opportunity to get ahead, add more stores, add more people. So we're gonna get into exactly what that is and how that can benefit you. So today I'm going to talk about when are we going to come out of this recession, what to do before and after to grow, management objectives that you can have during each cycle of the curve. And then we're going to talk about a 3-year economic projection and what goals that I would suggest that you begin to think about developing on your own. And then what's going to happen to car count in the future. We saw back in 2008 and 9 when car sales went down, we had a real problem with car count 5 years after that, especially if you were 100% productive and you were at the top of the production in your shop. Most of those shops felt it more. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then, if I have time, a bit about how to engage your people, your service advisors and your technicians. They're going through a tremendous emotional period right now, as well as you are. So it's important that we figure out ways to be able to keep them really engaged, because their engagement results in directly in their productivity. So you're not going to get 100% productivity out of a technician that's not engaged in doing the business for you. So that's the plan this morning. So without further ado, let's see if we can get these slides to move, and we'll move into the first one. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about U.S. personal consumption expenditures for motor vehicle maintenance and repair. ITR Economics, which is in Boston, not too far from where I am in the great state of Maine at the moment. The Bolio brothers have been economists and producing economic forecasts 4 to 5 years out for CEOs of large corporations. And I'm in a CEO group in Maryland with 20 other different CEOs in different industries from ours. And they have hired this company to be able to help them project what's going to happen in the future. And they've been incredibly accurate with the data. We've been using it for 15 years to help our members prepare for what we think is going to happen coming down the road. Now, nobody knows what's going to happen. The pandemic was definitely a shot from the back. So that throws you off a little bit when you're an economist. But for the most part, economists, based on history, can predict what's going to happen. And if you're thinking about what you want to do next year instead of how to react to something now, your business will be a whole lot more successful than just waiting for something to come out of the clear blue sky and react to it. So I would like you to be proactive. So my goal today is to help you be a little bit more proactive with what's going on. So let's take a look at the consumption expenditures for motor vehicle and maintenance projected out 3 years. And this is a busy slide, so I'll take your eyes, look at the second line down, annual growth, and you'll see in September, it's going to be almost a point down in growth. December 20, which is coming up, will be almost 4% down. Then March, 4.2, and look how it begins to pull out in the second quarter of 21 and goes up into almost 5% growth range, which is where we were pre-pandemic. I mean, the economy was just rolling along really well for us. And you know, what's going to happen here, and all the data is really interesting, but the outlook is that annual expenditures are going to decline into early 21. Now, this is North America as a whole. This isn't necessarily downtown Minnesota or any one particular area. This is the North American market as a whole. So things affect that. Is there local manufacturing near you that has a real big problem? But if you look at the economy as a whole and you can project off that, you know that, the odds are that your area is going to respond this way, maybe slower or faster than others. For those of you that, are in areas where you're not having big second outbreaks and hotspots, you may pull out of it much faster. And then annual expenditures will then rise into the first half of 2023. And ITR expects annual expenditures to surpass pre-COVID-19 levels around the middle of 2022. So even though that sounds like a long way off, I'll remind you that those of you that lived through the 08-09 recession, it took almost 4 or 5 years to get back to where it was prior to that recession. This one, we're probably going to pull out in half that time. It'll probably be a 2.5-year hit to us. So why is that? Well, the administrations are getting a little bit smarter, hopefully, and they're reacting to these things quicker and providing stimulus so the economy doesn't, just collapse. If you look at the results, growth rates have really, for the most part, unchanged. And the supporting evidence for the economic forecast here is, pretty simple, as you would think. Individuals are working from home more, reducing the use and therefore wear and tear on vehicles. And this is expected to reduce demand for maintenance and repairs into 2021. The other things is consumer confidence has definitely began to pick back up. I'm going to share with you what I call the Coach Mike Bennett chart. Mike's been a coach for us for a long time, and he noticed how consumer confidence tracks really quickly with the rise and fall of the economic future for automotive repair and maintenance. So we're going to talk a little bit about consumer confidence, because you can look at those charts pretty readily and get an idea of how consumers are feeling about spending money, which is a real good thing to look at if your service advisor is telling you that nobody's going to buy anything today. And then what are the risks to all this? Well, you know, the big risk is will the administration produce another stimulus package to help people have money? I mean, I think many of us were pretty surprised based on everyone going home and what could have happened. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and many people thought it was going to be. So the question is, how soon will that second stimulus package come? And then, is there going to be a second wave? We've already seen second waves in many states, if you're watching the news. And how bad will that second wave be? And will it stop the growth in that market? We already see governors pulling back on restaurant participation and how many percent of people can be in there. And then, you know, then the big risk is what will happen from the administration that just got elected, or should have been elected, or who knows, what do you want to say to that one? But the good news is it really doesn't matter much, believe it or not. I think all of us, especially if you're in small business and you're rooting for one particular candidate that is probably more pro-business than others, the belief is, boy, if my guy doesn't get elected, we are doomed. But over 100 years, and I just listened to a webinar created by these folks and one other people, they've studied over 100 years the different administrations that have been elected, and they've looked at elections all through that time period. And the bottom line is that it really didn't matter who got elected as far as the general economy and the growth of the general economy and consumers. So, you know, the one thing that we have going for us in America, it doesn't matter whether, you know, you're a conservative or you're a liberal. The majority of us want to have a safe, happy family. We want to be successful. We want to live a great life. And the majority of us are willing to work to get that, regardless of what side you may be on. So the bottom line is, you know, I wouldn't worry too much about what's happened in the recent election as far as affecting this overall forecast. I believe you're going to find that it's going to happen either way. Will we have to pay more taxes, you know, and all the different things? Well, a lot of things will change, but it's not like as shop owners, we haven't been there before. This is not an easy business. As a matter of fact, on the grand scheme of things, this is probably one of the tougher small businesses in America to have. Especially when you look at staffing issues and capital requirements and everything else today versus, geez, 50 years ago, it was pretty easy to start an automotive repair shop. All you had to do was be able to fix cars, have some integrity, get a set of tools, and people came and the cars broke violently. Wasn't that a wonderful business? I remember those days. I'm sure some of you guys have been doing it as long as me remember it too. If you look at the consumption in dollars, you know, in this industry, you know, annual expenditures, 188 billion. This is a big industry. And some of us wonder how in the heck we got into it. I'm sure during certain periods of your career, you've asked yourself, geez, how did I get in the automotive industry? And is this where I need to stay the rest of my life? But interestingly enough, it seems like it gets in your blood and you can't get it out. And you learn it and you understand it and you enjoy it and you love it, and you thrive in it. So as you can see, it could be a lot worse. This has been an industry that overall has had some dips, but not that many compared to so many other industries that we've in. And the outlook is, you know, you can expect the annual expenditures to decline into early 21 before rising into 23. But as you can see on the curve, take a look at the curve back in 08, 09, 10, 11, you know, it's more of a U. And what we're hoping for here is that we're going to have more of a V recovery here in our industry, that it's going to snap back a bit quicker. And they're predicting, ITR, that 2.5 years, we're going to be back up to where we were pre-pandemic. Versus if you look at the 08 and 09 recession, it took us, you know, almost 5 years to 2012 to get back to where we were. And hopefully the administrations in Congress has learned a lot from that, and they're not going to let that happen to us again. So let's look at the forecast of what's going to happen in the future and when the dip and how we've been rolling here. We are currently what's in phase C, which is called slowing growth. Well, we've been in that for quite a while. We're actually in a recessionary phase right now, but by the end of September 20, when they snapped this picture, it was slowing down. We're about 5% slow. Many shops that we've talked to are running anywhere from 5% off to 15% off, but a lot of them are about 5% off, which is the growth level of the decline of the automotive repair and maintenance industry. However, up until that point, annual growth really hadn't went down below the zero line. So we really weren't in a recession, up until recently when it began to slow down. But the third quarter kind of came back, really strong, much stronger than a lot of people expected it to do. So that was really a good sign. So we could climb out of this thing, so much faster. But if you look once again down at the annual growth rates, you can get an idea of when we're going to climb out of this. And that'll be into the second quarter of 21 before we actually pull out of that. Now, so it's all good, so expect 21 before we rise out of the zero line, but it could be a lot worse. We could be in the restaurant business. And if you look at, some of you are in areas where industry is doing worse, which could have a longer effect, like truck production is not doing well at all and has been in a recession, as well as the OEM car industry has been in a recession, is going to stay there for a while. Medical equipment, aircraft production, medical equipment, electrical equipment manufacturers. A lot of these companies are going to be a bit longer to pull out of this, and they're going to hit a lot harder than our industry is going to hit. So there's your expenditure forecast, which you'll get a copy of. Now, if you look at forecast history, what's happening? How good is this company that we've depended on for 15 years to predict for our members what we think they should begin to start thinking about? And if you just look at forecast accuracy back in September 19, before all this started, and you look out through June, they've been 99 to 97% accurate. These big time economists that charge a lot of money to guys like me that want to dissect one industry that had never been dissected before, by the way. We've had a lot of big companies borrow this from us because it's been incredibly accurate. They're always trying to prove that this is what's going to happen, or the odds of it happening are really going to be good. So forecast accuracy, we believe, is really strong for pulling out next year in the second quarter. And for those of you that are really interested in data, I'm not that detail oriented. I'm a big picture guy. So looking at complex subject matter makes me crazy. But if you like that kind of thing, if you look at this page, we're looking at data trends and rates of change. So one of the things that we're looking at here is monthly moving total versus monthly moving average. And we look at it in 3-month and 12-month sections. So a 3-month or a 12-month moving total average is the total average of the monthly data for the most recent 3 and 12 months respectively. And then, so we look back 12 months or look back 3 months, a year ago from where it was, so we can get a picture of what's happening. So then there's a business cycle, which surprises some business owners, but the reality is this business cycle takes place. And for those of you who've been doing this as long as I have, you've seen this business cycle go on for years. Like I said, I think I've seen 5 recessions now. And once you're in a recession, which they call phase D, then you move over to recovery. And during the recovery period, your management objectives need to change. And when we move into phase B, accelerating growth, your management objectives need to change. So it's not just about business models and am I going to run a relationship or transactional based shop. It's more, not just that, it's what business cycle are we in and how should I be behaving with what's going to happen in the future? Because I think those of you that are on this call pretty much drink the Kool-Aid. You realize that a business is supposed to give you life, not take your life away. So your goal has been, and many of our 1,700 members has been, to be able to work on it, not in it. Well, when you're working on it, you got time to look at things like this. You got time to plan out what's going to happen. You have time to change your strategy. You don't have to react day to day. And that helps you grow, that helps you survive, and that makes your family a whole lot happier with you as well. So the business cycle is something we just need to grasp and understand that it is here. There's nothing we can do about it. And sometimes we skip the phase D recession part and move right into recovery. So let's talk a little bit about objectives. And I'm going to concentrate on phase C and D, slowing growth and recession, since we've been in a slowing growth period, and we're definitely, we're definitely in a recessional period, and pretty soon we're going to move over to phase A, recovery. So this will give you a list of things that CEOs of all different kinds of companies pay attention to. Some pertain directly to automotive repair shops and will fit you. Some are a little bit lofty and you don't have to worry about. So let's just go down the list of phase C and discuss that. Know if your markets are headed for a soft or hard landing. In other words, is your business going to get dramatically hurt, and is business going to fall off 50%? And the answer to that is no. The automotive repair and maintenance business is going to have a nice soft landing, which is really good. It pretty much has had mostly soft landings most of the time that I've been around. And number two, cash is king. Buying power is really important right now. If you're sitting on a lot of dry powder, you have the ability to do things that other shop owners don't have, which, as an example, people that aren't doing well during this period and want to sell their business, or have been doing it a long time and want to give up. This is the straw that broke the camel's back. If you got a lot of cash right now, you're going to be able to find a lot of great deals out there to add more stores, if that's what in effect you want to do, or get more people, or just grow the business, or make a change in your building if you don't own it. So cash is really critical, and it's going to be critical until you come out the other end, because we don't exactly know how bad it could get depending upon the second wave. So I don't think it's going to be worse than the first wave, but you're better off with a lot of dry powder behind you. And it's always important to have a safety net and a couple months of payroll. So it's really critical, when you're running your business, not to get too tight, grow too much without having a lot of powder dry, or the ability to go to the bank and you have great credit and the interest rates are really low right now. So great time to borrow money if you can. So stay on top of aging receivables. You wouldn't want to have a lot of receivables going into a worsening. And you want to revisit capital expenditure plans depending upon what you intended to buy. Could be a good time to buy equipment, and lose the losers. If you're in a business that you shouldn't be in, or everybody's been telling you need to get out of that side of the business, you don't make any money, you've been losing, and it could be a good time to jump out of that. And most of you have already reacted to some of these things. So the 6 and the 7 don't really fit as well. But if you look at 9, evaluate your vendors for financial strength. Some of them, especially the little vendors, may not make it through this to the other side. So have a backup plan and look at additional vendors. And if your vendors are strong, take advantage of all the free training and the things they're trying to do to help you stay in business, because many of the parts manufacturers are really going out of their way to make sure you succeed and get through this period. And then cross-train people to prepare for a workforce reduction if you got to slow down even more. I know that's hard to do. Some of you have already done that, but it really comes down to employee engagement. That's really the key. So I would suggest that you focus on getting your people trained, getting them working, and pull yourself out of a negative mode. But let's jump into recession. Implement cost-cutting measures. Offer alternative products with a lower cost basis. That can be a great thing to do. Perform due diligence on acquisitions while valuations are falling. One of the things I am still involved in, we have 3220 groups operating, and I am involved with the mastermind group, which was the very first group. And these guys have been buying things and adding stores and growing, buying property, and being very, very aggressive during this period. And this is really a great time to do that. When everybody else is hiding and worried about things, you can really get some great deals. And I would reduce advertising as consumers become more price conscious. If you can't get more people in, you may want to spend some money in different areas. If it's not working for you, every one of you will be a little bit different in that area. Enter or renegotiate long-term leases. Those of you that are still leasing your business, your commercial warehouse guys and building owners and landlords, they're pretty nervous right now. Maybe a great time to renegotiate the lease and get a better rate, and do that by offering to go out longer if that's what you want to do. Or it's certainly a wonderful time to turn around and get some help and buy the real estate that you're in. This is a good time to do that. People are more hungry to get out of things. The banks are very hungry to loan money if your credit's good. And I don't think you need to worry about negotiating labor contracts. So that's, thank God, most of you don't have to deal with that. And consider capital equipment needs for the next cycle. In 2 quarters, we're going to be in a recovery mode. Is there capital equipment that you're going to need in that period of time? Because interest rates are low right now. A lot of the equipment companies are very hungry to help sell the equipment, so you can get a lot better deals. So this could be a great time for you to focus on doing that now. You may want to tighten credit policies because you certainly don't want your receivables to grow, because cash could be a real killer. The bottom line is when shops go out of business, they run out of cash. There's maybe a few other scenarios, but the majority of it, there's just no cash. And develop programs for advertising, training, and marketing to help implement you into phase A. So that's really critical right now. And lead with optimism, remembering that phase D is temporary. This recession is temporary, and you being the shop owner, it's really critical that you're very optimistic about what's going to happen here in the future. So one of the things, and as a takeaway for you, one of my favorite books this past year was written by an author named Don Ream. It's called Thrive by Design, and the book is about employee engagement. And E3 Solutions is his name of his company. You can find the book on Amazon. We hired him to develop employee engagement surveys. And employee engagement is not, surveys aren't employee satisfaction surveys. People can be satisfied with working for you, but not engaged. They're quite happy with turning 25 hours, or they're quite happy with turning 30 hours. I mean, you can come up with a million ways to measure it, but unless you can motivate them to do more, it's not going to do you any good. So one of the things that we've done in the last year is we began testing our members and trying to determine how engaged were those people. And it was interesting. The most successful shops that had been in this business the longest would get blindsided every time that they had a couple techs and service advisors that just weren't engaged. And when they learned what was wrong with them and got management to dig in, it was incredible how they could increase productivity. So, it would take me hours to teach you the whole thing, but buy the book, Thrive by Design, Don Ream. I think you'll really enjoy it, because the biggest long-term threat is really staffing. Let's face it, this is going to be over. It's just another thing that we've all dealt with, probably the worst of all thing, but we're 76,000 techs short right now. So, and remember that service advisors and technicians, they join companies, but they quit managers. So you got to make sure that your managers know how to keep your people engaged, because it's not they are or they aren't. They can be engaged one month and not engaged the other. So it's critical that we teach our managers to do it. We've been teaching courses on engagement recently, and we've had tremendous success with trying to increase productivity by doing that. And 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every day. So by 2030, 75% of the workforce is going to be millennials. And let me take it from a guy that's got 18 grandkids. God save us. I'm sure every generation said that of the generation after them. But to engage millennials is much different than engaging baby boomers. So, and Gen X's and Gen Y's. So here's some stats that we've learned, which are actually pretty shocking. From the engagement survey results that we've done, we found that 5 to 15% of your employees are actively disengaged. They don't tell you this. It's even hard to see. 35 to 50% are somewhat disengaged. They're the ones in the sweet spot that are fixable. 20 to 25% are engaged, and 5 to 15% are actively engaged. And actively engaged service advisors and actively engaged technicians are 3 times more productive than the others. And if you're trying to figure out why can't I get all these guys to drink the Kool-Aid? What's the problem here? Because obviously it's not all about money anymore. We've all learned the hard way. In the old days, you could throw money in front of people and that seemed to work. But, millennials, boomers, we responded to money, but a lot of these different generations, they don't. They don't go to work to make money necessarily. They live to work like we live to work, right? Well, they work to live. So it's a very different thing. So remember that as shop owners, you drive culture and your managers drive engagement. So you work on your values and your culture and watching the business and making sure you're going in the right direction, but your managers are the one that actually make the engagement happen on day to day. So they're the ones you need to invest in getting better at getting your employees engaged. So create conditions where people want to work and listen, encourage, and mentor. I'll show you a goal sheet that'll help you work around that at the end of this, and you can use that as a takeaway if you need something to sit down with people and try to figure out how to motivate them. Let's talk about consumer confidence. I call this Coach Mike Bennett's slide. As you can see, wasn't life great in January? I mean, January 2020, and right before COVID was announced, consumer confidence was incredible. And then if you look at the dive in April, and then it dove back again in July, and we began to come out of it in the quarter. As a matter of fact, University of Michigan, which is where this consumer confidence said it's slightly up in October. The Conference Board, which has got another online consumer confidence report you can get off the internet, says it's slightly down. But consumers in general don't see it taken off in 20. And I'm telling you that our belief is it's not going to happen the first quarter of 21 either. It's going to even get a little worse as a whole. It doesn't mean that you can't do something about it and fix it on your end. And then it'll begin to slowly pull out, into the second and third quarter of the year. One of the things that I always like to look at, which comes from a different report, is where is North American light vehicle production? Dealers are not our enemy. Well, they can be on the service side, but these are the guys that are selling the cars that we're going to work on 5 years from now. If they don't do well, I'll guarantee you, for those of you that are 100% productive right now, your car count's going to suffer 5 years from that point because those cars are not going to be there to work on. So for years, we've been studying what's happening to the OEMs. How many vehicles are we producing, and can we predict what they're going to do? And they've been down and in a recessionary mode for quite a while now. But production surged in July and August because manufacturers look to make up time lost to shutdowns. I just got a new Subaru Outback because it's one of my favorite vehicles, believe it or not. And The dealer up here in Maine I got it from sold 300 new Subarus. Last month when I bought the vehicle, it was a record month for them. The OEMs didn't anticipate that people were going to buy a lot of vehicles, so a lot of the OEMs shut down production. And now you're starting to see the used car market increase. For those of you that are in that business, people are looking to buy vehicles. So the ITR lifted the forecast for the next 3 years, and production, though, is unlikely to return to pre-pandemic levels through 22. So, as you know, we've been used to 17 million vehicles sold in any given year. And last year, before the pandemic, it was 16.2. You stay in that level, you'll always have cars 5 years from there coming out of warranty, even though they are getting more reliable. I think we've hit the peak of that. But in 2020, you can expect that there's only going to be 12.8 million vehicles sold. In 2021, it's going to rise to 14.9 million vehicles. And then 2022, 15.5. So, you know, we're definitely seeing a 20% reduction this year, 16% increase next year, and 3% after that. So it's going to take a while. We're going to be playing catch up for the OEMs to try to get the vehicles out there to even be sold. And as you know, it's been changing dramatically, the type of vehicle. We're at SUVs and light trucks mostly now to replace passenger cars. So, you know, 5 years out, you can anticipate the car count is going to drop. If you remember in 08 and 09, you took 5 years after that, we began seeing all of our 1,700 members that were at 100% productivity complain about car count first, because they felt it. They were used to stabilizing car count at a very high level and pretty much did not have too much to grow in that store. So when they felt the 08-09 recession, everybody was clamoring and trying to figure out what was wrong. Well, the vehicles just weren't there to work on. So you can anticipate that 5 years from now, or 2025, 26, and 2027, that it's going to happen again. Now, the big question is, and we've kind of been waiting for Jim Lang with the Lang report to come out with, how many shops are we lost so far during COVID? And how many are we going to lose? Will the reduction of outlets stabilize the car count for our shop 5 years from now, because there'll be less of them? Well, it's hard to say. You know, there's 8,000 less shops in the last 5 years that have gone out gradually over a period of time. We've seen very, very little shops going out with us. Our member count is exactly where it was pre-COVID. And our members are doing okay. Some are doing really well, but we don't see a tremendous amount of shops going out in North America. That'll change, and we'll have to see how this plays out, because people that aren't prepared with cash and don't have dry powder, if it slows down even further and they can't react fast enough, there could be more shops going out. So if the outlet count goes down and the number of bays goes down in North America, then it may not dramatically hurt us as bad as I'm predicting that it could. But you need to take it in consideration. So you're way ahead of the game and you're prepared for what could actually happen. And if you look at vehicle production in a graph, you can see, you know, it made quite a dip and went down into a recession, which is anytime they go below the rate of change of zero. They began going into a recession in 2019. So long before COVID, the industry began to slow down. So that's exactly you know, what could affect us, and you'll see the dips in the trends as well with North American light vehicle production. Last but not least, this is something that when I first went into business and was trying to figure out how to motivate service advisors and techs, we wanted to help them set up goals, right? Well, you can use this for employee engagement as well. You get Don Reen's book and you want to figure out how to sit down with people and help them become more engaged. You have to really listen and understand how they tick. And if you ask somebody what their goals are 5 years from now, or most people are incapable of doing it. But if you gave them this form and said, hey, listen, go home with your wife and just score physically, mentally, emotionally, relationship, yada, yada, yada. Financially, where were you 5 years ago? Where are you today? And where do you want to be 5 years from now? It's remarkable when you do this little drill how you'll come up with a lot of things that you really want to do that you hadn't thought about. And you can't motivate people if you don't know where they want to go. And as business owners, our job is to help our people get where they want to go in life. That's it. If you want to increase productivity, just figure out how to help people get where they want to go in life and use your vehicle or your business to help them do that. So it's critical that you stay in with them and really figure out what it takes to help them get where they want to go. So my suggestion overall on how to play this economic curve is get back to basics. Our shops that did the very best during COVID, they went back to sales management 101. They were looking at estimates. They were looking at courtesy checks. They were looking at conversion rates at the front counter. They were looking at all the metrics that sometimes when business goes great, we forget to look at. So go back to basics and start managing average repair order. And luckily you got information today from some of the other coaches that are online that can share with you, exactly how to do that. And then now that you have a pretty good idea, assuming you trust me, what's going to happen 3 years from now, start to develop a 3-year plan so that you can get where you want to go quicker and you'll be ahead. You may not be able to implement everything in the plan, but you'll have a really good idea. And then above all, learn how to engage your people. Remember, your biggest problem long-term is staffing, not pandemics. There will be more pandemics, unfortunately. I hope I'm not around, but learn how to get your people engaged. And above all, what I tell all our members at times like this, or at least when it was in the beginning of COVID, don't forget to breathe, because that's really critical. Everybody tells you all these things to do. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but just don't forget to breathe. We're going to come out on the other side of this and everything's going to be wonderful. And we're going to get back to growing just like this industry has grown since we began. So thank you very much. And Hunt, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Chubby. So we got a couple questions here we want to go through, and I want to get your kind of thoughts on a couple of things. So first question is, what was the name of that book again?
The book was called Thrive by Design.
Thrive by Design.
And the author is Don Ream of E3 Solutions.
Perfect. Awesome. We had 2 people ask about that. So that's Thrive by Design. One other question here that we had is, we were talking about a lot of different sectors in this industry, right? It's not just, hey, what are our consumers doing? But a lot of this stuff is coming from the top. Do you think that there's going to be an issue with parts shortages? I know when, the pandemic started, there were some issues just because production overseas was slowed down. Do you think that, we've seen the same kind of impact from the parts supplier level, that you might see less inventory and stocking issues going forward?
If it is, it'll be real momentarily. China has cranked back up. Imports from Europe and China and Asia have really cranked up in the last 2 quarters. So no, I don't see a lot. I don't see a lot of long-term issues. You may see a quick burp on some products, but I think for the most part, imports are really, really coming back strong. Regardless of what the administration say when they're trying to get you to vote for them, it's going to be, we're all doomed,
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things that you talked about too, because I have a lot of people, kind of reading a little bit too far into the president's changing. Is it going to drastically change our life? I mean, sure, there's tax policy that, directly affects my life and most of my clients' life. But overall, are we going to really be in a different place? And, I think that one of your points that really hit home, and I think one of the big strong points that we've seen with a lot of shops through this is you got to look at yourself in the mirror, right? You as a business owner, as a shop owner, are the biggest driving factor, whether it's going to be a positive or negative, format or outcome out of this stuff. What do you say? Because I know you said that, some shops have been down, but I know personally a lot of shops that, we've seen have turned this, made lemon into lemonade and have actually had a really good year this year. What do you think that has been the biggest driving factor for the shops that have succeeded through this?
Well, I think a lot of them have coaches, by the way, not just ours, but it really helps having somebody keep your head straight, because it's easy with all the negative press and things and people coming at you to get pulled down. So, and I just think I think that helps tremendous. Our 1,700 members have been doing really well. Their return on investment is about the same this year as it was in 2019. Now, they had to change a lot of things to do that. Some had to reduce people. Some had to go back to basics harder than they did, but the overall coming out the other end of this, and I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for our members, is the majority of them are doing exceptionally well. So I think we're going to come out of this just fine. And I think it's pretty much optimism. I think if you believe it's going to be okay and you don't stick your head in the sand and you fight and do something about it and you don't sit back and accept what you're hearing on the news. Sometimes I think we need to turn the television off. I'm so glad the election's over. It's making me wild. And I think many of the viewers out there felt the same way. The anxiety level, and geez, it's just incredible. But now that can pull you back down. I still have the same coach I've had for 16 years. And I got him today, this afternoon after this. He talks me off the ledge once in a while and gets me to focus back on what I need to do. And I think that just helps, whether it's a business coach or a nutritionist or, a trainer that helps you physically. I think we all need that. And I think that is a difference between, really successful shop owners and those that can stay at it. Some don't need that, but the majority of us do. I know I do.
Yeah, just that accountability. I know that I talked to a couple of shops early on in this, and I had some people saying, well, it's just slow, the phone's not ringing. I'm like, well, what are we doing? Are we, staying out there? Are we on Facebook? Are we picking up the phone? Are we checking on our clients? No, it's just not ringing. I'm like, all right, well, if your phone's not ringing, theirs should be ringing. Like you said, go back to the basics, old school 101. Hey, follow up on declined service. Pick up the phone, just check on your customers and say, hey, can we bring you anything? Just be out there and be present and be front of mind. And I think that's a big reason of why a coach can help a lot of people, because instead of sitting back and feeling sorry for ourselves, oh, everyone's down, it's like, all right, well, let's try and fight out of this. I think one of the big things about this industry, especially that I reminded people when they're kind of feeling sorry about ourselves, is, being in the automotive industry, you actually have a fighting chance to fight through this. You're allowed to be open when there's tons of other small businesses out there that we're just watching their business crumble. So let's do what we can and try and get ahead of this. Couple other questions here. So let's see. We got a question. Does it matter who the president is? Does the data change? No, I think that this data is, kind of forecasting what they think is going to happen, irregardless of, what the president is going on. You can kind of chime in, but I think really the biggest thing on, a president is a lot of this is the changeover, right? Consumer confidence is directly related to change. People do not like change, and you can see it in the numbers. Anytime that we have an election year, even if the incumbent wins, we're going to see a pullback in the fall because people just don't know what's going to happen, and people don't like that. But I think, long-term outlook, short of some major plans coming out, I don't think that there will be a monstrous change in this industry either way. But we do have a good question here related to that. I want to hear your thoughts on this, Chubby. So do you see a time in the near future where we have a cash for gas program where the government pays consumers for crushing gas-powered vehicles and start giving incentives for electric vehicles? Kind of a new 2020 spin on cash for clunkers, but
yeah. I have no idea. How's that? I mean, I don't know everything. I hope not.
Yeah.
But you never know, with the administration back in office, anything's possible. We saw that one come out of years ago, but I don't see electric vehicles, even though I happen to own one because I wanted to go 0 to 60 in 2.6. It's exciting for me. It hasn't been a great vehicle. I can tell you whole stories, but I think it's going to be 2035 before you see autonomous vehicles and a lot of electric vehicles. We have range anxiety. We haven't got the batteries right. I've owned one for 5 years now, and I don't know. I don't think electric vehicles are going to be the problem in our industry. And I think that certainly, Tesla's not capable of working on them all. So I know we're going to be able to work on them all, but I'm unsure about what could happen, but to get rid of clunkers. But it won't be to get rid of clunkers to get electric cars. I can tell you that. It'll be to get more gas for a while. I don't see fossil fuel going anywhere, regardless of what they say. The Republicans held the Senate, and the donkeys and the elephants can't agree on anything, which could be good in this case. We don't have to worry about windmills on our property everywhere, but not that that's not a good thing. But so I think it's going to take time. But the direct answer is I don't know what the administration's capable of doing now.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be really kind of shocked if they brought back that program because, a lot of this, is all related to climate change and pollution and stuff like that. And so if the whole idea here is that we're trying to reduce our impact on this planet, then the idea of paying people money to condemn something to a landfill seems to be counterproductive. But hey, you know what? If I try to put too much reasoning in politics, I'm always going to get that wrong. So
Yeah.
awesome. I got another question here. So Sharon's asking, hang on one second. Let's see here. So Sharon's asking, she missed the first part of the presentation, but perked up when I heard that Chris is in Maine. So are we. Is he affiliated with a shop up here? So no, he is actually in a vacation home, second home up there, right?
Yeah, well, I'm building the Frederick compound to retire into. It'll be our second home. It's in Cape Porpoise. So if she's anywhere near me, no, I have not. The only thing I've done is go out and buy a new Subaru, and I'm getting snow tires soon. So I'm available for that if you sell snow tires. But nope, that's the plan. And there's certainly a lot less COVID up here, even though it's on the increase right now. But it's certainly less than in Washington, D.C. and Maryland, where I'm from. So
cool. But yeah, I guess Sharon, if you're looking for any help in a shop and you want to shoot me over, I can get you Chubby's resume, and you guys can see if you can come up with a deal here and get them in there. They're in Bangor, Maine, she says. So I don't think
that's really north.
Yeah, they're way up there.
My wife's trying to encourage me to retire, and I don't do this for money anymore. I do it because I love it, right? So she's trying to drag me, like many spouses, trying to get their husbands and their wives to stop working. So I get it, but it's fun.
You've been doing this a long time, right? You said you've been through 5 recessions like this. And, I think one of the biggest things that, jumped out at me, because a lot of people are comparing this to 2008. And really 2008 is the only real comparison, is that's our most recent recession that we've had. But, if you looked at some of the information that you gave, not only was the downturn for 2008 nowhere as sharp as what we see now, the upturn of it was also much longer as well. So, do you see this as more of just a blip on the radar and we're going to really start climbing back out of this? Or do you see kind of that dragged out process like what we saw back then?
No, I think we're going to come out of it in half the time. That was kind of a 4 or 5 year drag back in 2009. And I think it's going to be more of a V curve than a U curve. So I think 2.5 years tops, we'll be right back to where we were pre-pandemic levels. So that's my belief, especially based on what I've seen the administration and what we've done so far to shore up America and help people. I think it'll be much faster.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is, I think the difference between that is, we had a lot of compounding issues that are hopefully once in a lifetime stuff, with Wall Street and mortgage-backed securities and the entire real estate market as a whole. And so I think for the most part, it's been pretty strong on that aspect because they've done a good job of kind of reining in the real estate side, because real estate, whether it's commercial, residential, real estate has such a big impact on the overall, economy of this country. Now, the big thing that is still, kind of up in the air and what we will see is what are going to be the effects on the commercial real estate side when we have this new way of working, right? I know that firsthand, I've had a couple shops that have been kind of disproportionately affected because they're in major metropolitan areas where they're saying, my clients, my customer base doesn't live here. They work here, right? There is people that live here, but those people that live there work elsewhere. And so I've seen a big shift in some of these areas where they're having to kind of get some new customer base because one of my shops was inside Boston. And he says, all my clients live, 30, 45 minutes outside of Boston. I picked them up when they came into work. And so, what advice do you have for people that are in a situation where they're trying to change who they're targeting because of this demographic is changing with the work from home situation?
Well, outside of moving, which is never really a popular thing in this business, usually you lose 20%. Pick up and delivery, those shops may have to pick up and deliver farther. But the one thing to remember is they have the relationship, they have the trust of the customer. So, we have seen that pickup and delivery has just been a wonderful savior. And if you get aggressive, people are sitting home that are willing to service their car. I remember when this first happened and our members started dialing people up and saying, do you care if we come pick up your car and take it in? No, we're fine. Fine, great. And we had all this money pent up and people were willing to spend money. That wasn't, look at Amazon. They were fine. But, the ones that are in the city, we have a number of them that have been in that situation. Their revenue hasn't changed at all, but they've had to work a little harder to go get the vehicles and bring them in. So there's a little bit more work, but I think that's the answer. The only problem with pickup and delivery is once you spoil people, you're not going to unspoil them. They're going to want you to do that forever. So once you take that step, you're in that business. But I think it's a great way to stabilize car count, quite frankly. And if you're in an economy where you can offset the price of doing that in your cost of repair, then I think it's a great way to stabilize the business.
Exactly right. And and you mentioned Amazon, one of the biggest reasons Amazon has taken over the market share that they have is they've reduced all friction to do business with them, right? And so
Right.
that's one thing that we've seen a lot of shops kind of wake up of like, hey, we used to do it this way, but taking your car, dropping off at the shop, waiting on it or having someone pick you up or doing a loaner, that's making friction for someone to be able to do business with you. A situation like you talked about, hey, I'm going to pick up the car, I'm going to service it, I'm going to drop it off to you. You text me, I'm paid. That's about as hands off. That's what people want nowadays, right? That's why Amazon is making so much money because whatever I want, I go on, I click it, and then if it's not there tomorrow, I'm annoyed because I'm used to this stuff being hand delivered. So, adapting to this new way of doing business and making sure that we're staying ahead of it. The shops that are doing that are going to succeed, and we've already seen that happen. They're thriving. And the shops that are saying, hey, you know what, that's not the way I do business, right? That's not how we do it here. They're probably not having a great time right now.
Yeah.
Awesome. This has been incredible, Chubby. We're pretty much wrapped up here, but I wanted to just kind of leave everyone with one last thing. So if you were to give advice to someone right now, we're coming into the winter months. I know that there's a lot of talk on the news that the numbers are spiking up, possible shutdown. Biden's already kind of, talked about a possible 4 to 6 week shutdown, like what we saw back in the spring. What would be your number one piece of advice to a shop owner right now to do in the short term, let's say in the next, 3 to 5 months?
Make sure that they're back to basics like that we've all been teaching for years. I think to nauseum. That would be and read that book on engagement and learn all you can about employee engagement. And if you can figure out how to get your people surveyed, so you can pick out the ones that aren't going to be with you. Long-term staffing is going to be our problem. So keep concentrated on that and don't let this initial thing, the pandemic, really take you off your long-term strategy and planning.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Chubby. That was been incredible. Hopefully everyone enjoyed that. And then we will see you a little bit later today for the roundtable.
2:00, right?
2:00. Got it.
Okay.
Thanks,
I got
Chubby.
a house to build.
There you go. All right. Talk
Bye-bye.
to you a little later.
Thanks, hon.
Thank you.